Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my latest vlog. Today, I'd like to speak to you about a post that I put up a few days ago, and I said the vlog is forthcoming, and so this is the forthcoming vlog. I want to talk about how everybody in the sector talks about change, right? But it ends up being the same organizations and or the same people who keep talking about change. So my question is, if we really want to see a different way of doing things in the world, we also need to see different people. And we need to see different geographies and different locations and different contexts and different perspectives. Otherwise, there is going to be no change. If we see the same organizations representing the idea of change day in and day out, then that's really not change. That's indicating that it is going to be the same people all over again, but perhaps, slightly differently in terms of how they present themselves. That's not change. If we really want international development, cooperation, and humanitarianism to look different in the way it's managed, structured, and implemented, it also has to visually look different. So we need to see it being represented, these sectors being represented by a number of different visibilities. Let me put it that way. So this also harks back to another post that I had put up about the whole idea of conferences, right? So we know conferencing is very big in our industry. It's huge in our industry. In fact, it's getting bigger and bigger because every month now there are at least a couple, if not more, global conferences happening, bringing people together from all parts of the world, which is wonderful. It's wonderful to meet people from different parts of the world. But again, even in these sort of global convenings, they're now calling them, which is, I think, just another word for conferencing, you're seeing the same people again and again and again and again. And these are conferences where hundreds of people attend, right, from all parts of the world, yet they're sitting in the audience, and everybody up on the stage happens to be literally almost the same people at multiple events. How do we talk about change when even that happens? And I know I'm talking about primarily from a global north perspective because those are the organizations that are constantly, they have the ability and the power to continue to represent themselves very forcefully and very visually and very visibly. But this is also becoming a norm within the global south. So even in the global south, you see the south being represented, quote unquote, by similar organizations or the same organizations. And this is a worrying trend because the global south is massive. And my question is, all those hundreds of people in the audience, how are we going to get them to represent themselves up there? When are they going to be stopped being in the audience as an audience and actually be up there talking about the work that they do? And so this whole idea of change is again a very, very dubious one because if it's the same people asking for change, then that's not change. Or it's the same people who keep championing change, then it's not change. Change is when you see people you don't even recognize or people who aren't familiar to you talking about change. Now that's hard work. Not just in trying to identify those people, but also in making sure that those people don't become, more of the same. Like they don't fall into the same trap, because this is really a trap at the end of the day, where representation is also being controlled by particular groups. And this isn't really what we want to see. And part of it is the fact that this entire global conferencing phenomena is leading to, a few who have the resources to be able to host such massive gatherings, but also to control who comes to these gatherings and who gets time at these gatherings, who gets to speak at these gatherings, who gets to actually represent organizations in these gatherings. And all that is in a way gate kept, right? There's gatekeeping going on as well. And so again, how do you expect any level of change to occur if you're actually gatekeeping who gets to represent both the global north and the global south? And because the south, way deep down there, doesn't have those sort of resources, it's unable to give itself, that leverage of representation at a higher level. This is why again and again and again I keep talking about the national and not the global. Because at the national level, and this is also the case at the national level as well. I mean, I use Pakistan as an example. In Pakistan, when I used to be part of the sector, there were, the usual suspects in the development sector who would be convening, who would be speaking, who would be writing, who everybody would look up to. So this is a phenomenon that exists everywhere, not just at a global level, but even at, a very national level as well. But the thing there is that you are amongst your own people. And so there is at least an ability there for somebody to highlight you as a person and your own context, as opposed to a global level where you've got so many people from so many different contexts, and everybody belongs to their own little world, and you have maybe an int of that world being represented as the voice up there calling for change. So that's where you have the discrepancy between the global and the national. So again, for me, having voices at the national level, having national events where your people are represented amongst yourself is really the idea of where change can come from, as opposed to the more global level. Nevertheless, even at the global level, we have these silos that have been created. And so again, if we're seeing the same geographies being represented time and time again, if we are seeing the same identities or ethnicities being represented, or the same categories of communities or sectors being represented by the same people again and again, my question is, where is the change? So this gatekeeping that we have of change in the international cooperation sector needs to end. There needs to be far more openness in some people stepping back from all parts of the world, and allowing the space for others who have never been represented, let alone underrepresented, have the floor, provide the perspective, provide the guidance to change. I don't know how that's possible, because we really are being gate kept. I don't know if that's a word, but the level of gatekeeping within international cooperation is so strong that even that itself is very hard to break through, right? And there is this fear. I know there is this inherent fear in me of becoming a voice that's very visible on different platforms and forums, which is why I consciously stay away from many of them, because I don't want to be that person that I'm criticizing. I don't want to be the person at every single platform saying the same thing again and again and again, because I'm taking voice away from someone else. But the irony is, the space that people like me, vacate because we want others to come in, is again being used up by the same, categories and spaces and organizations. So really, my vacating a space isn't making space for somebody who deserves more attention and more voice and more visibility. It's actually just being taken away by the powers that be to further, cement their leverage and their level of representation. So again, what sort of a change are we talking about? If we want real change in international cooperation, then the geographies have to change. The levels of representation have to change. The visibilities have to change. And I think this is a very, very terrifying prospect for those who have been in power for the longest time, and also for those who have suddenly gained newfound power, because there's a lot that's happening in this space that is giving newfound power to a lot of people. And it's their responsibility to use it accountably and fairly. But power is power, right? It has this ability to literally take over and consume you so quickly. So I'll end there, and I will just reiterate the post that I'm referring to. And give me a sec, I'm just bringing the post up on LinkedIn. And I say in my post that the future of global development and international cooperation, as literally everyone is headlining these days, because everybody is about the future of international development, right? So, this future can only be possible if it allows us to see new faces, new geographies, and new perspectives. There is no future, quote unquote, if it includes all the old faces, places, and people. So, people, how are we going to be out with the old and in with the new? I leave that thought with you today. Have a wonderful week.